welcome to the Gridiron Guesser and a huge week of college football here in week 4. Thanks to all of our new subscribers out there. And if you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe. Just do it. Like our videos and turn on those notifications. This is going to be a defining week in the 2023 college football season. And the Gridiron Guesser has 11 money picks for you. We've got 11 winners right here. So let's quit the small talk and let's pick these f***ing winners. Game number 1, the Florida State Seminoles head to Clemson to take on the Tigers. Florida State is a 2-point favorite with a total set at 55. Florida State comes in off their less than impressive win over Boston College, while Clemson has had 2 wins over Cream Puffs since getting their asses handed to them by Duke. Last season, Clemson was able to go down to Tallahassee and get by the Seminoles. Can the Noles sneak into Death Valley and get a win here? Let's look at these money numbers. First off, Florida State has lost 7 straight games to the Tigers and have been just 2-5 against the spread in those games. The Noles are 3-1 against the spread as an away favorite under head coach Mike Norvell, but just 12-13 against the spread against conference opponents. Clemson is 75-49-3 against the spread against conference opponents under Dabo Swinney, but just 2-4 against the spread as a home underdog. Clemson has covered the spread 5 straight times against the Noles. So what's going to happen here? This game just has a totally different feel to it than it has in the past. For the first time in what seems like forever, it feels like Florida State is truly the favorite here in this matchup. Maybe that's because we're all still impressed by the second half against LSU, or maybe it's because our belief in Dabo Swinney is dropping after first game loss to Duke. Either way, this one feels like Clemson is fighting to remain on top. Florida State has been great this season in the red zone, coming away with points almost every time. And the Seminoles have done a good job avoiding tackles for lost yardage and sacks. The Clemson defense is strong, allowing only about 143 yards per game in passing and ranking in the top 20 nationally in red zone defense. The Tigers also find their way into the backfield often to rack up tackles for loss. This game will be a good one to start the day, and the odd makers know it by putting it at a 2-point spread. Dabo knows he needs this one, and he'll have his Tigers ready to fight until the very last second. Florida State will be ready too, and they have the better team from top to bottom. But the home field crowd and the potential weather will make this game a close one. Expect both teams to grind, with the Seminoles hitting a few big plays. The Tigers will battle and find an answer seemingly every time with their backs against the wall. This will be a 4-quarter game and could come down to the last-minute score. Gridiron Guesser loves the Tigers in this spot, and we went against the money numbers last week, and it hosed us. The Tigers have covered 5 straight in the series, and we say they make it 6. The Gridiron Guesser has Clemson covering the spread, but the Seminoles escape with a 1-point win, 28-27. In Game 2, we have the Auburn Tigers going over to College Station to take on the Aggies of Texas A&M. The Aggies are an 8-point favorite, and the total is set at 50.5 points. The Aggies blew by Louisiana Monroe last week, rebounding from their loss to the Miami Hurricanes a couple of weeks ago. Jimbo Fisher has to be feeling the pressure. Everything the Aggies are doing is being scrutinized, and a loss to the Tigers here would be an utter disaster. Auburn comes in 3-0, but have yet to really play a real opponent. Auburn has looked great on defense, but could definitely be better on offense. Let's take a look at these money numbers. Texas A&M is 15-11 against the spread as a home favorite under Jimbo Fisher, and just 20-1 versus SEC opponents. The Tigers won last year's game straight up, but that was with a totally different Auburn team, and now Hugh Freeze is the head coach. From 2012 to 2020, the home team was 0-8-1 against the spread in this matchup. Wow. So what's going to happen? The Auburn defense has been really good so far this season, ranking number 1 in the nation in red zone defense, number 4 in third down defense, and number 12 nationally in passing defense, giving up just 155 yards per game. But the Tigers really haven't played a team with a good offense yet. Texas A&M is still fine-tuning their offense under Bobby Petrino and ranks number 11 in the country in passing offense with about 337 yards per game. The ground game could be better, but the red zone offense ranks in the top 20 as well. The Aggies' defense has been strong, ranking number 3 in the nation in third down defense, allowing opponents to convert just about 20% of the time on third down. This game will come down to which units will be able to exert their will over the other, and the Gridiron Guesser sees this one going to the Aggies. The Auburn defense is good, but their offense is not going to be able to do enough to keep the Tigers in this one. They just don't have the quarterback yet to run Hugh Freeze's offense. The Gridiron Guesser says give us the Aggies to win and cover over Auburn 31-20. For game number 3, we have the Colorado Buffaloes going out west to take on the Oregon Ducks. The Ducks are a 21-point favorite, and the total is set at 69. First off, we can't believe this is a game we are picking during one of the biggest weekends of the year. And that's not to slight either team, especially Colorado. That's a credit. They have vastly outperformed anything anyone thought, and that has them in the national conversation as a ranked team taking on another ranked team this weekend. So let's get into it. The money numbers on this one really don't do much. There's just not any real data that we can get from Colorado, as they're kind of an outlier so far this season. On Oregon's side, the Ducks have done well against the spread under Dan Lanning, going 5-1 against the spread as a home favorite and 6-3 against the spread versus Pac-12 teams. So what's going to happen? Well, this game should be a passing fest. Colorado ranks number 2 nationally in passing offense with 418 yards per game, while the Ducks tossed around over 360 yards per game. But the Ducks are going to have the advantage in this one on the defensive side of the ball. Oregon has been good in pass defense, and the Buffaloes have not. The Ducks should feast all day on defense, getting to Shedeur Sanders and creating havoc in the backfield. If Oregon can slow down Colorado throwing the ball, they should have no problem slowing down that Buffs offense. Colorado is one of the worst teams in the country in rushing offense, sacks allowed, and lost yardage plays. Colorado has been a great story so far this season, and the story isn't done just yet, but this matchup is not a good one for the Buffaloes. Both teams will score some points, but expect Oregon to have a comfortable lead throughout most of this game. The Gridiron Guesser likes Oregon to win and cover 55-28. Game number 4 is one of the most underrated games of the day, as UCLA travels over to Utah. The Utes are a 6-point favorite with a total set at 52.5 points. Both teams come in at 3-0. However, Utah has had a bit more challenging of a schedule so far, having beaten Florida and escaping Baylor. UCLA has played 3 directional schools. Some of the key money numbers show us that the home team is 4-1 against the spread over the last 5 meetings, while UCLA covered and won straight up last season. So what's going to happen? Utah is battling some injuries, but starting quarterback Cameron Rising is expected to be back, which is why this spread has jumped from about 4.5 to 6 recently. So will it make a difference? Well, a little bit. Both teams will lean on the running game, with UCLA averaging over 270 yards on the ground and Utah being one of the best teams in the country at dominating time of possession. Utah has struggled to throw the ball without Rising, averaging just 170 yards per game and only converting on third downs about 38% of the time. UCLA has been just average in pass defense. So can Rising and Utah find more yards through the air? Possibly, but we're not expecting too much from him in his season debut off that knee injury from the Rose Bowl. This game is going to be close throughout. Utah is tough to beat at home, but this is Chip Kelly's best team so far at UCLA, and freshman quarterback Dante Moore is for real. The Gridiron Guesser likes the Utes to win outright, but there's no way they cover that 6-point spread in a game that features 2 even teams. Utah wins 27-24, but fails to cover in a great game. Game number 5 features the Ole Miss Rebels heading over to Tuscaloosa to take on the Alabama Crimson Tide, a team that's in unfamiliar waters. The Tide look rattled so far this season, losing the big one at home to Texas, changing quarterbacks in a lackluster performance at South Florida, and now back to Jalen Milroe for this SEC showdown. And hell, Lane Kiffin even suggests that Alabama has quietly changed defensive play callers based on what he's seen on game film. So should Alabama really be a 6.5-point favorite in this one? Well, let's start with just a few of these money numbers. Alabama has won the last 7 meetings against the Rebels, scoring over 50 points per contest, compared to only about 25 for Ole Miss. However, Alabama is just 3-4 against the spread in those games. As expected, Alabama is good versus the spread under Nick Saban, going 78-61-3 in his tenure versus SEC teams. Under Kiffin, Ole Miss is just 2-3 against the spread as a road underdog and 11-14 against the spread versus SEC teams. So what's going to happen? This game screams take Ole Miss in the points. Alabama has yet to find a quarterback, and that's a problem when you're about to go up against a team averaging 53 points per game. Plus, Alabama is 103rd in the country in tackles for loss and sacks allowed, while only passing for just under 200 yards per game so far. Ole Miss comes in averaging nearly 350 yards passing and is top 5 in the nation in scoring offense. They also have been good on defense, sacking the quarterback over 3 times per game and getting about 8 tackles for loss per game. So again, is Alabama really the 6.5-point favorite in this game they should be? Yes, it's called the Alabama effect, and not only does it affect sports betting, but it also affects the teams they're playing on the field. The effect is real, and Nick Saban is not going to allow the Crimson Tide to go quietly into the night, especially against Lane Kiffin. Alabama is going to come out for the first time this year looking like the Alabama of old. Yes, the offensive line is still horrible and Milroe will be forced to scramble, but that's exactly what the Tide want to happen. Milroe is dangerous when it's time to improvise. The Rebels will get their share of tackles behind the line and do plenty to disrupt the Tide offense. However, it will be the Rebel offense that struggles once again to find their footing against this Alabama defense. The Gridiron Guesser likes Alabama to make it 8 straight over the Rebels in a crushing loss for Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin. But not all is lost as the Rebels will get a late score to cover that 6.5-point spread. The Gridiron Guesser is taking the Tide 31-27. Next, our 6th pick of the week is BYU at the Kansas Jayhawks in their first ever matchup as Big 12 rivals. BYU is fresh off their upset last week at Arkansas, and Kansas comes off their less than spectacular win over Nevada. Kansas is a 9.5-point favorite with the total set at 55. Last week, BYU only gained about 280 yards of offense, but scored 38 points in their win over Arkansas. Kansas racked up 440 yards in their win over Nevada. Kansas has been outstanding converting on third downs this season, converting 63% of the time on third down. But BYU is one of the best defenses in the country on third down, allowing opponents to convert only about 28% of the time. So let's see what these money numbers say. BYU has actually never won in the state of Kansas, but that was against Kansas State and Wichita State. This will be the first time the Cougars play Kansas in Kansas. Under head coach Lance Leipold, Kansas is 3-1 against the spread as a home favorite, but BYU is 12-4 against the spread as a road underdog. The only previous meeting between these two teams came in the 1992 Aloha Bowl, won by Kansas. So what's going to happen? 9.5 points seems like a very large number for the Jayhawks to try and cover against a quality opponent like BYU. BYU showed last week that even as a sizable underdog, they know when to take advantage of the other team's mistakes. BYU capitalized on the mistakes made by Arkansas and erased 2 double-digit deficits to come back and win on the road. The Jayhawks are explosive on offense and have been pretty solid on defense so far this season. BYU has struggled some in pass coverage on defense and has been very poor on converting third downs offensively themselves. But this is a game where we are not going to play against the money numbers, and the money numbers on this one say take BYU. BYU is not going to win the game, but they are well coached and they will not beat themselves. Kansas will be able to move the ball in the Cougars' defense, and the Cougars will be able to take advantage of a couple of the Jayhawks' miscues. Expect this game to last a full 4 quarters, with Kansas coming away with a 35-27 win, but a BYU cover. Game 7 is another matchup in the Sunflower State as the UCF Golden Knights take on the Kansas State Wildcats. The Wildcats come in as a 3.5-point favorite with the total set at 52. The Wildcats lost a heartbreaker last week to Missouri on a last-second 61-yard field goal. Kansas State had their chance to win the game, but failed to put it away. UCF comes in at 3-0, with their most impressive win being an 18-16 win on the road to Boise State. UCF bolsters the number 1 offense in the country, eating up 617 yards per game, 299 on the ground, 316 in the air. Kansas State only gives up about 50 yards on the ground, but has been shaky in pass defense. The Wildcats have been good at getting pressure on the quarterback as they average over 3 sacks per game and over 9 tackles for loss per contest. So what do the money numbers say about this one? These two teams haven't played since 2010 when Kansas State won 17-13. UCF is only 1-3 as a road underdog under head coach Gus Malzahn, while UCF is 3-3 versus Big 12 teams in their last 6 games. Kansas State is 10-6 as a home favorite and 24-13 against the spread versus Big 12 opponents under head coach Chris Kleiman. And off a straight-up loss, the Wildcats are 11-6 against the spread. So what's going to happen? Are the Wildcats still licking their wounds from last week? Has Coach Kleiman been able to get his team to turn the page and focus on this week and the Big 12 race? We think so here at the Gridiron Guesser. The money numbers on this one are too strong to turn away from, no matter what your gut instinct might be telling you. We picked Kansas State to cover last week, and it f***ed us. But we're going all in again on the Wildcats. We see Kansas State being able to slow down the Golden Knights offense and force trouble all day in the backfield. Look for the Wildcats to shut down UCF and get off the field on third downs. And the Wildcat offense will be able to find just enough points to get the win and cover. The Gridiron Guesser is taking the Wildcats 34-30 over the Golden Knights. Game number 8 is the Oregon State Beavers heading up to Washington State to take on the Cougars. The Beavers are a 3-point favorite with a total set at 58. This game features the only 2 remaining Pac-12 teams after this season. Both teams come in 3-0, and both teams have dreams of winning the last Pac-12 championship to stick it to everyone else. The Beavers and Cougars are both good teams, and the winner of this game is going to be in good shape to make a run at the title. The money numbers here show us that Oregon State is only 1-5 against the spread as a road favorite under Jonathan Smith. Yikes! And up until last year, Oregon State had lost 8 games in a row to the Cougars. Washington State is a modest 3-1 against the spread as a home underdog, but a whopping 9-3-1 versus Pac-12 opponents. And not to mention, the Cougars are 6-3 against the spread versus the Beavers since 2014. So what's going to happen? Washington State loves to throw the ball, with a number 3 passing offense in the country averaging almost 400 yards per game, but they can also run a little bit as they average about 170 yards per game. The Oregon State run defense is stout, allowing just 58 yards per game on the ground. If the Beavers can stop the running game, they also have the ability to put pressure on the quarterback. Look for the Beavers to bring pressure all day on Cameron Ward and try to force him into some mistakes. He's been good with the ball so far this season, and we don't think that's going to change much on Saturday. The Cougars must be better up front and not allow the Beavers to feast in the backfield. Expect the Beavers to be firm on defense and DJU and the Oregon State offense to be efficient when given opportunities to score. The Gridiron Guesser is bucking the numbers here a little bit and going with the Beavers to win and cover 34-26. Game number 9 of the day features the Arkansas Razorbacks traveling to Baton Rouge to take on the LSU Tigers. The Tigers come in as a 17.5-point favorite with a total set at 55 points. The Tigers come into this one off an impressive win over Mississippi State on the road, while the Razorbacks look to put last week's disappointing loss to BYU behind them. LSU and Jaden Daniels are trending up. KJ Jefferson and the Razorbacks are not. LSU and Arkansas both come in at 2-1 with non-conference losses. So not all is lost on the season with the opportunity to still win the SEC title, but the loser of this game will be in serious trouble with many difficult games to follow. The numbers on this one are very interesting. This game has been decided by 3 points each of the last 3 seasons. The Razorbacks are 6-3 against the spread as a road underdog under Sam Pittman, but they're just 11-20 straight up all time in their SEC openers, although they've won their last 2. LSU is 3-1 against the spread versus Arkansas over the last 7 games, and they're 6-1 straight up. Surprisingly, the home team has lost the last 3 games in this series, with Arkansas winning in Death Valley in 21 and LSU winning at Arkansas in 20 and 22. So what's going to happen? LSU has looked phenomenal since the opener against Florida State. Jaden Daniels was just unreal against Mississippi State, throwing 30 of 34 for 300 and something yards. The LSU defense has been stifling, and yet this game against Arkansas is going to be close. KJ Jefferson didn't play last season in this game. He'll be ready this time. Much like Alabama, the Hogs' offensive line is dreadful, and Harold Perkins and company will be running at KJ the whole game. But that's just what KJ and the Hog offense needs to get going. KJ will be able to throw on a weaker than usual LSU secondary, and that will help to open up a little bit more running room. For LSU, Jaden Daniels will be good again. His polished passing game will be on full display, but the Arkansas secondary will force at least one bad decision to help keep this game close. The Razorbacks defense is playing well, being one of the best units in the country in sacks, rushing defense, and tackles for loss. While KJ Jefferson will have a nice performance, it will be the Razorbacks defense that helps to keep this game close. LSU will escape with a nice win, but they're not going to cover such a large spread. The Gridiron Guesser is taking the Arkansas Razorbacks to cover the 17.5 points, but give us the Tigers to win the game 30-24. Game number 10. Wow, real football. The Iowa Hawkeyes head over to State College to take on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Penn State's a 15-point favorite, and the total is set at 40. Let's say that again. Penn State is a 15-point favorite, and the total is 40. Yes, defense, slugfest, rain, bad weather, you name it. This is real football for real football fans. Iowa comes in with a dominating defense, as you'd expect from Iowa. The Nittany Lions are ferocious on defense as well and have a decent offense, especially on the ground, to go with it. This one could be a race to 10 points. The money numbers on this one show us that Penn State is 4-3-1 against the spread versus Iowa since 2011, but the Hawkeyes have won and covered the last two meetings. The Hawkeyes are also 6-2 versus the Big Ten East since 2020. So what's going to happen? Iowa has a terrific defense. Penn State has an outstanding defense. The difference here is in the offenses. While Penn State has room to improve this season, Iowa continues to flounder around near the bottom of many offensive statistical categories. The Hawkeyes are 107th in the country in third down conversion percentage, while the Penn State defense only allows opposing teams to convert about 30% of the time on third down. The Iowa passing game ranks 121st at just 151 yards per game, while the Nittany Lion defense is a top 20 unit in sacks this season. While Iowa is one of the fewest penalized teams in the country, Penn State counters with having one of the best turnover margins. A critical key in this game will be whether or not the Iowa front can get pressure on quarterback Drew Alleer. Penn State has been great in protection and also doesn't take many plays for lost yardage. 15 points seems like a lot in this game. But can Iowa even score at all against the best defense they've faced at this point of the season? And with the expected bad weather, expect both offenses to grind and stall in this one a little bit. Both defenses are going to be solid. The difference in this game is going to be which team has the better offense, and we know that to be Penn State. No, it's not going to be mistaken for like electric or explosive. But the Nittany Lions will get just enough out of their running game to wear down the Hawkeye defense and allow Drew Alleer to find a few holes in that secondary. This is going to be a slugfest from start to finish, and with the expected weather and great defenses on both sides of the ball, expect Iowa to hang close enough to cover that 15-point spread. That's just a lot of points right now for this Penn State team this early in the season. And Iowa is not a bad team. Phil Parker is the most underrated defensive guru in the country, no doubt. Having said that, the Gridiron Guesser likes Penn State to win, but they're not going to cover. We're taking Penn State 20-10. In our 11th and final game of this amazing Week 4 of college football, we have the Ohio State Buckeyes traveling to Notre Dame to take on the Fighting Irish. The Buckeyes are a 3-point favorite, with the over-under set at 55.5 points. Damn. Another badass college football game. Look, like them, love them, hate them, whatever. College football needs both Ohio State and Notre Dame to be good. A primetime game under the lights at Notre Dame Stadium against Ohio State is college football at its finest. The money numbers on this one are pretty simple. Ohio State has dominated this series since like the 1930s. They're 4-1 against the spread versus Notre Dame since that time. Under Ryan Day, the Buckeyes are 9-7-1 as a road favorite, while the Irish are 7-4 against the spread versus Power 5 opponents since Marcus Freeman took over. So what's going to happen? This is going to be another epic game between two heavyweights. The Irish have been great on offense and defense so far this season, ranking in the top 20 nationally in passing efficiency, first downs, fewest sacks allowed, and total offense. They have been good on third downs, converting nearly 55% of the time. Ohio State has been terrific on defense at the number 2 scoring defense in the country, giving up less than 7 points per game. And their pass defense is only allowing 140 yards a game. While the Buckeyes seem to have settled on their quarterback in Kyle McCord, their offense hasn't been its normal high-powered machine just yet. And a strong Notre Dame defense isn't going to be the place to find it, as the Irish are one of the best defenses in the country, giving up just 234 yards per game. The difference in this game is going to be Sam Hartman for the Irish. He has been a stabilizing force for Notre Dame that they needed to lead their offense and their team. The Buckeyes and the Irish will hit some big plays and momentum will swing back and forth. But ultimately, the Gridiron Guesser sees the Irish defense forcing McCord into a few bad decisions and Sam Hartman leading the Irish on several long, methodical drives to seal the win for the Irish. In a game that will see star power all over the field, the Gridiron Guesser says give us the Notre Dame Fighting Irish to win and cover 31-24. So there you have it. There are 11 money picks for the biggest weekend of college football to date. Take them to the bank. Go ahead, subscribe to our channel, turn on your notifications. Thanks for watching. Enjoy this weekend of college football, and we'll see you next week.